Hello everyone, Reza here. In this video, I will show you how to perform group by on data in Power Apps galleries. I will show two techniques, one leveraging the group by function, and the second technique is the one in which you can group by on large data sets, supporting delegation in Power Apps. I will also showcase filtering and sorting of grouped by data. So let's check this out in action. To start exploring how to group data inside a gallery in Power Apps, I have a Canvas Power App that is connected to a SharePoint list. My SharePoint list is a list of student information. To group data in Power Apps, we have a function called group by, and group by returns a table with records that are grouped together based on the column that you've specified to group the data. The records in the same group are placed into a single record with a column added that holds a nested table of all the remaining columns. So let's look at this in action. In my Power App, I will go ahead and insert a blank flexible height gallery. The items property for this gallery, I would want the data in this gallery to be grouped based on the region that the student belongs to. Region in my SharePoint list is a choice column with the following 4 choices. Group by the name of my data source, which is my SharePoint list of students. Then here I need to provide the name of the column on which I want to group my data on. My region column is a choice column, which is considered a complex type of column. This will show simple columns like text, dates, the internal ID column, and more. So what I need to do is I need to get that region choice column data, which is a complex type column, into a simple type column format. And to do that, I will use the function add columns. My data source would be my students list. The name of the column that I want to add, I will call it region text. And the expression to grab that value will get the value from my region column, which is a complex type column. It's a choice column. So if I do region dot value, it will give me the text value of that, which now will be held in a column that would be added right here in this expression, which would be region text. Now when I group by this data, I can group by the region text column. So I will pick that. Then I need to give the group name. This is the column name to be used for the resulting nested grouped data. That means after it does the grouping, the table that has all the data related to that group, what do you want to call that column? And I will call it data, and I will close my group by function. The moment I complete my expression, right here, if I was to open this experience, we can see there are 2 columns that are output by this group by function. Region text, that is the column that I'm performing the group by on. I have 4 regions, north, south, east, and west. And I have another column called data, which has tabular information. So region south, the data column will contain all the records that are related to the region south. North, all the records that are related to the region north, and so on and so forth. Now that I have my data grouped, I can leverage this information to create the resulting experience in my gallery. My gallery control, I selected a flexible height gallery. At the first level of this gallery, I will add the headings, basically the group headings, which is my region text information. And then for each of those gallery items, I will insert a nested gallery to show all the data, which is the tabular data with respect to those groupings. I will click on this pencil icon to edit the gallery. I will go and insert a button control. So this creates all my headings right here. The text property for this button, I will select this item dot region text. So it'll give me all my group by values. Gallery has a property called isSelected. It will let you know which item in the gallery is selected. Based on the group selection that the user makes, I would like to highlight that with a different visual indicator. So for my button control, I will head over to the fill property and use the following formula. If this item dot is selected, use my dark green color, else I will go ahead and fade the color by 0.3. If I preview the app, it's a flexible height gallery, so we can see that it takes the real estate based on the controls within it. Right now, south is selected. We can see that with the visual indicator of that dark green. If I select north, the selection goes to north, and so on and so forth. Now I want to show the data that is held within each of those groupings. Once again, I will edit my first item in the gallery, and in here, I will go and insert another gallery control, and I will once again pick a flexible height gallery control. This, I will begin its position from right below this button. So I've dragged this down. The height of this new gallery, I will set it as parent dot template height minus my button control, which I have renamed to BT and header dot height. So it will calculate the height and fit that right inside that space. Now if I need more real estate to play with here, I can go to my main gallery, go to edit and change the template size accordingly. The nested gallery will expect a collection or an array of data. And to provide that, in the items property of this gallery, I can leverage this item dot data. Data is the column that got created, which has all the rows related to the grouping that I performed using the group by action. Now this is also a gallery control, so I can edit this, define the template size. In here, I can start adding the information that I would like to showcase. For example, I'll add a label control, and this one would be this item dot, and here I will get all the columns from my SharePoint list available for me right here. So I can show the title, which includes the name of the student. I will copy this and add another control within this gallery. Here, I will show the class the student belongs to. Class is a lookup type column, so I'll pick class.value. So this will give me the class information for that student. And I can add other pieces of metadata as well right here by adding additional controls. Now, once I've completed this, if I was to preview my app, I can see the data based on the groupings. For example, the region is South. These are all the students who belong to the South region. If I scroll down, I have North, students belonging in the North region, West, and East. However, I would like to only show the nested gallery if the current item in the gallery is selected. So to do that, my nested gallery, the visible property, I can set it to this item dot is selected. Now if I preview the app, it only shows me the student information for the South region. If I pick North, it will give me the student information for the North region, and so on and so forth. My main gallery, I know that I have only 4 groupings, so why not leverage the additional real estate that I have? So I can span this across almost the entire height of the screen, so the other 3 buttons fit in there. And my nested gallery, which has the scrolling experience, I can turn this off and change this to a navigation-like experience. So if we preview the app, these are all the students that belong to the South region. If I pick North, I have all the students here belonging to the North region. Taken the same steps, but I have styled my gallery. My nested gallery here is showcasing the student information in this card-like format. And here are my region-based group by buttons. Now this group by function works very well for scenarios in which your data set is small. In Power Apps, we have a concept of delegation. Delegation is the ability of the Power App to delegate the work of performing the query, in our case, group by data from our data source. That operation, Power Apps would want to delegate to the data source that it is connecting to. If that function against your data source is not delegable, for example, group by, which is not a delegable function, in that case, Power Apps will load only the first 500 records in memory and then perform the group by query on your data set. My students list has over 5,000 records. In my Power App, where I have these group headings defined on the button, for the text property of this button, I will also add the count of the number of items that are held inside this nested gallery so that we can see how many items this Power App's actually loading. So the formula that I've added here is, if this is the selected item in the gallery, then go ahead and count the items that are being held in my nested gallery. If I preview the app, I have 151 students that belong to the South region. If I click North, I have 126 here. I have 69 in the West region, and I have 154 in the region East. If you add up all of these numbers will amount to the number 500. That means my query is currently not delegable. And the reason is because the group by function is not a delegable function with respect to any data source. So if it is not supported, Power Apps can only work with 500 records. But a scenario like mine, I have a SharePoint list which has 5,000 plus records. And more or less in most of your use cases and scenarios, you will have data spanning beyond 500. Now, one route that most people take is they quickly go to settings, and right under general, there's a setting for the data row limit, which by default is 500 for an app. And they change this to 2000. The reason is because 2000 is the maximum delegation limit that you can set. Changing this to 2000 will now start loading more data in memory, and you can see the performance of my app degrading. If you observe, it took a while before the gallery loaded in this scenario, and that is because Power Apps is doing the work of loading 2000 records from my backend data source into memory so that it can then perform the group by action on it and present the results to me. I'm running this on my browser experience. I have decent bandwidth, but what if I was to run the same app on my mobile device, wherein my bandwidth is low? In that case, you can imagine how long it will take for this screen to load. And even now, if I was to calculate all these numbers for the South region, North region, West and East, it will amount to only 2000. What if I have more data? Power Apps cannot work with more than 2000 results no matter what you do if you are running into a delegation warning. There are ways to work around this as well. For example, I've seen folks load data into collections. They create a collection, load the first 2000 records, then keep adding records to the collection. But data in a collection, where is that held? It's held in memory in your Power App. Once again, you're loading data in memory. It's going to slow down the performance of your app drastically. There's also a distinct function which allows you to get the distinct values from your data source, and then you can perform queries against your data source. But once again, distinct is not a delegable operation. Now the question is, how do we get around this? Here, what I will do is I will change my technique. I'll take the same scenario. I want to group by the regions. Region is a choice column in my data source. For my main gallery control, the items property, I will change this to choices of my data source dot my column of choices, which is region. This will work for lookup columns as well. When I do that, it will return a column value which will have my 4 choices. The text of my button control, which is where my main headings are posted, I will use the function thisItem.value. So I will get my 4 regions, which is North, South, East, and West. Now within this gallery, I have my nested gallery, the items for which was coming from thisItem.data. Data was coming based on group by. Now I do not have that anymore. But here I can go and query my data directly from my data source and ensure that the query that I perform is delegable. For example, filter my data source, which is my students list, where the region column, which is a choice column, dot value is equal to this item dot value. This item dot value is those group headings. Now if I complete my function, and if I was to preview my app, you can see that when I pick north, it queried the data for the north region. If I go to south, it will show me the data for the south region, and so on and so forth. This is a delegable query against SharePoint as a data source. Why? Because filter is a delegable function and the operation equals is also delegable. I've done a full series on delegation. I'll paste the link in the description of this video, so do check that out. Now here, let's try and see the count of the number of items in the gallery. So if this is the selected item, then go ahead and count the rows in my nested gallery dot all items. Now the moment I do this and preview the app, observe it says 100. The delegation limit that I set for my app, I changed it to 2000. To prove my point that this query is delegable, I will change this limit to 1. 1 is the least that you can set. Even though I changed the delegation limit to 1, it still shows me 100 records. This is delegation in action. In Power Apps, when you make a query against your data source and the query is delegable, that means the query is being performed at the data source level and Power Apps is not doing the work. That will make your app extremely performant, since the work of performing the query will be done by the data source. And once that query is performed, the data source will return the results to Power Apps in an optimized manner. And that optimization is by sending results back from the data source to Power Apps in batches of 100. What if the user wants to see the next set of data? Well, to do that, the user has to anyway scroll through the items in the gallery and go to that last record. The moment you get to that 100th record by scrolling down, Power Apps will load the next set of 100 records in memory in an optimized manner. And we can see the count changing to 200. And this will keep loading all the data from your data source into Power Apps as long as the user keeps scrolling. And this is true no matter which group by region heading I select. Here's my gallery with 100 records based on students in the East region. So this is the power of delegation in action. You can see the load times of this screen is extremely fast, and as I make the selections, it quickly gets the data from my data source, as Power Apps is not doing any of the work. The work is being performed by the data source, in this case SharePoint, because the query is delegable. And you can work with SharePoint lists as large as millions of records. You can also apply filters to the data in your gallery. For example, here I have added a drop-down control that has the different classes the students belong to. To populate this drop-down control, I have once again leveraged that same choices function on my class column, which is a lookup column. And in my gallery control, wherein I had the filter for region.value, now I have added another filter that I have attached to it. Here, I check to see is that drop-down control blank, that is if no selection is made, then show me all the items, or if a selection is made, then query the class column dot value based on the drop-down control dot selected dot value. If I pick class 1, this will now show me all the students who are in the region north and belong to class 1. And there is not one student in my entire data set of 5,000 records that has that scenario. And that's a guarantee because this is a delegable query. If I select class 3, I have only 3 students who belong to the region north and the class is class 3. And we can confirm that in SharePoint as well. Here are those 3 students in my entire data set. If I go to class 2, I can see 100 records. Delegation. Once I scroll to the bottom, it will load the next 100 records of students who belong to Region North and are a part of class 2. And here I have even given a visual indicator to the user. The user can see the number of records, and whenever the records are returned in multiples of 100, I put a plus sign next to it just to add an indicator to the user that there could be more records. And for them to see the records, they would have to scroll to the bottom. Now it says 300 plus, there could be more. And the way I achieve that is by using the modulus operator. Here I use the with function to get the total number of items in the gallery, store it in a variable called total. The text that I showcase here first is my group by heading, which is this item.value. Then I give the total count of the number of items in the gallery, and then I use the mod function on that total count. If modulus 100, because it loads data in batches of 100. If that is 0, then you append this plus right next to it. And we can see that in action here, no matter which grouping I go to. This technique you can expand to any group by logic of your choice. Here is a grouping of student data enrolled in the last 5 years. For the items property of my main gallery, I use the following function. I'm using the sequence function. The number of records, I set 5, and the start value, I set 0. And I've run a for all loop on this. And here, I get the current year we are in, and I subtract this based on the value of the sequence. So this gives me the output as follows. We are in 2022, so 2022 and the 4 years before that. So I have the years listed out as my group by headings. And for my nested gallery, my formula is filter my students list where the enrolled date is greater than or equal to this item.value will give me the group heading, which is the year, and I wanted the first day of the year, so I've used the following function to grab that. I check to see if the enroll date is greater than or equal to the date that the user has selected and less than or equal to 1 year from there. So it gives me all the students who are enrolled in that specific year. And to that, I have also added some additional filters which I've provided right here on the top for region and class. And this entire data set as well, I can apply sorting as well. Here I'm sorting my students based on their names, which is held in the title column. And we can see all of this in action. Year 2019, I have the following students who have enrolled. I can change the class to class 3. So this will show me only those students who are enrolled in class 3 in the year 2019. I can even filter this further by region. Show me all the students in the West region who were enrolled in 2019. And these are the results. Can change the year. In this case, I have no students who were enrolled in the year 2020 with the following filter combination. If I remove my filters, it will give me the data purely based on the group by, which is enrolled year 2020. If you enjoyed this video, then do like, comment and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and thank you so much for watching.